Hello and welcome to the Legends and Lads Cricket Podcast. I am Chirandan Srinath, your host for this week, and this is the 97th episode of the Legends and Lads Cricket Podcast, where two young lads meet two veterans and legends, Vijay Lokapalli sir and Rakesh sir. They couldn't join us this week for this episode. Uh, in a while, I'll be joined by my co-host Krishna Maitreya. But today we have yet another legend on the show, uh, Raunak Kapoor. Sir, you've been face of cricketing world for a while now, and I'd say maybe 10 or at least a decade. And I would like to put levels to cricket fans. Like the
Okay.
level one is, people who watch the scorecard and follow cricket. Level two is who watch highlights. And level three is who watch the live match. Level four is people who follow the live pre-match and post-match shows. And then here we are called lads on this podcast, but in this context, I think we are legends because when we started this podcast, no, I'll come to you. When we started this podcast, how we used to do our shows is one of us, like Maitreya, used to go on Crickbus. I used to watch the ESPN Cricinfo or the other way around, and I used to listen to you on the pre-match shows, and then he used to, it used to be like we're getting input from Crickbus and ESPN Cricinfo, those live shows, and then we, just filter words, change the words, and put it in our podcast because that's how we started it. It was 4 years ago, and we were maybe 16, 17 years old, and we didn't know how to talk about cricket. We enjoyed the sport, but putting it out on a professional platform like this, I think we had no idea. So following your work and doing this, starting this podcast and having you on this podcast, I think it's a huge privilege for us. And I'm really happy to host you, sir. And also, one more thing, you were a reason for a sleepless night because when you replied back to me that you would come to this podcast, you had just mentioned a small word that I've seen a little bit of LLC podcast, and that made me, oh my God, Raunak Kapoor has watched LLC podcast, and that made me go nuts. And I didn't get sleep for a while, but it's happy, and I'm really happy to host you on this podcast. So thanks for coming. How are you feeling?
Chiru, I must say, my jaw is hurting how much you made me smile in these opening few minutes. I loved the introduction. If you have seen a little bit of what I have done in order to get inspiration or what other people have also done to get inspiration, I can tell you that introduction makes me very proud. That is as original, as well thought, and well delivered as any professional or anyone who's done this for a while. It's almost like I'm sitting through one of our corporate meetings where we're discussing our fan base and who is our core audience. And you've so beautifully described level one, level two, level three, and level four of fans. So I'm honored to be here. I much rather be on this side of it and answer questions and talk to cricket fans like you because I genuinely feel like the only real satisfaction I get in my line of work is talking to people who have a genuine curiosity beyond the surface. And I can see that you're totally one of those fans. So it's my pleasure to be here. I congratulate you on your journey on the 97th episode. I love that it started from just an idea and a passion because that's how most of this industry runs. And I can't wait to get going. So thank you so much for having me. I'm missing the rest of your group, but please give them my regards and congratulate them as well.
So my first question, uh, you know, just take us through a day in ESPN Cricinfo office. Like, say the India England series is underway, and you have the pre-match show or the pre-session show, and when the session gets over, you're again back live. So, where are the inputs coming from? I'm sure you'll be getting it from so many statisticians. So much work goes behind, and while doing the show, you, I think there will be inputs coming in while you're talking. So, how do you manage all this, and how does the work in ESPN Cricket for Office happen in a typical day of a Indian cricket match?
Okay, all right, yeah. So I guess now that I've been privileged to work with rights holder broadcasts and then look back upon my Cricinfo journey, it's actually a lot more informative. So when we started video on Cricinfo, this was at a time where the concept of live video online didn't exist. So our first live video on Cricinfo was from Google Hangouts. There wasn't even YouTube Live at the time. And this mechanism that we're using to record this podcast is like leap years ahead into the future. So I mean, there are so many funny stories of how we started doing things. But what you realized at the onset was the one thing that remains common with Cricinfo, even though we've had our challenges to try and reach out to newer audiences, that the game is at the core of everyone's heart and mind. So when we're talking cricket, when we're planning content, it's always what can we do for our fan base, and uh, we've never been unaware of who our fans are. They are the ones that look for more, the hardcore cricket fan, the ones that want to know more about the game. So I guess that if you kind of keep that at the center of how you create any content, whether it's text or video, it kind of lends itself to what you see on the platform. And I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's perfect. We don't have the kind of numbers that perhaps a number of other video platforms talking cricket do. But for better or for worse, we've never been driven by those aspects. We've had a leadership that I am extremely proud to have worked with that has always said, focus on the content. If the content is good, the numbers will follow. And whatever those numbers are, as long as it's a business that allows for us to take those editorial decisions, we're lucky to go down that route. So when I joined Cricinfo, I can tell you that I felt like I was a kid who thought he knew everything about cricket, who entered an ecosystem and felt like a complete idiot because you have all these writers that you grew up reading off, and you had a face to the name suddenly, and these guys are talking cricket at such a high level, you feel like an imposter belonging over there. Like I came with all my confidence of, I've watched so much cricket and I've heard so many commentators and I know so much because in every family group gathering, you're the smartest one about cricket. When you're talking to your uncles and your cousins or when you're playing cricket on the streets, you know the laws of the game and you know the rules more than anyone. So you think you've entered there, then you suddenly go to cricket for and I mean, at the time that I joined, in addition to the likes of Samit Bala, our editor-in-chief, and Sharda Ogra, you had Sid Monga and, Nagraj Golapudi and these guys. And when they talk cricket, you just shut up and you let them talk. So you have a lot of people who are cut from the same cloth with strong editorial values, with the game at the center to their heart, in an excellent work culture. And I can say how valuable that is now that I've been with the organization for 12 years. Um, and I've worked with other organizations as well, where the pressures are completely different. When you work with Star Sports, when you work with Sony, or when you work with the ICC, it's brilliant in its own way because being on ground and being with cricket has its own charm. But what's beautiful about Cricinfo is the fact that we actually never felt pressure in a good way. So when we had a 30-minute show before an India game or an IPL game, we didn't have any highlights to run. We didn't have any package to run because we didn't have any of those things. We couldn't sometimes, at times, we didn't even have the permissions to use a press conference bite from the BCCI or from the ICC or whatnot. So all you can do for 30 minutes is talk cricket, and then you're sitting with whoever your guest may be. That guest may be a talker, or he may be completely an introvert who struggles to talk about the game, but there's knowledge there. All you have is the license to talk about the game, for which you need to keep the game at the center. So I think that's been the core sort of ingredient we've tried to follow. Even if we didn't have footage, we try to talk technique. Even if we didn't have the player speaking, we try to sort of give you analysis inside. We always try to leave the fan better informed when he left the show than when he came to the show. So if my objective personally is every time I do a show, Harsha Bogle used to say this a lot. I try to ask the questions that are in the minds of the viewers. Now that has become a little harder in my career because suddenly there are all kinds of viewers and they have very, very different questions and they have very different temperaments and expectations from what content they watch. So I try to still think of it the way I was as a fan. If I am watching a show with Harsha Bogle and Chappell and Michael Olding, I'm getting this out of it. This has helped me. So tomorrow when I'm talking about the game, whether it's with Sanjay Manjrekar or a Tom Moody or an Ajit Agarkar or whoever, I will try and have the same, at least, model to try and follow. So throughout at Cricinfo, that's what we've tried to do. We've hit some, we've missed some, but we thoroughly enjoy talking cricket. At times we can get a bit self-indulgent or maybe talk on and on about things that only mean something to us. But I have no regrets whatsoever because for me it was an education of the game that I could not have got anywhere else. And I'm extremely grateful to the fact that I worked with people who cared about the game and still do. And that remains at the forefront. It's not anything else. Players come and go, rights come and go, good tournaments come and go, bad tournaments come and go. But if you actually have your interest on the game itself, you can talk about any cricket for any amount of time. As far as the support goes, of course, lots of guys who work hard. Cricket was known for its numbers strength as far as stats go and insight goes. So when we try to take video to become an integral part of the site. It is not a video first site. It's always been a text first site, a numbers first site. But we try to replicate the identity of Cricinfo through our video programming as well, which was let's just not talk about how amazing Rohit Sharma is, or Virat Kohli is, or MS Dhoni is. Let's talk about why a decision was made, why a shot was played, what was the build up to it. We're trying to sort of enhance the understanding of the fan, and that is the curiosity that I like to approach every show with. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I'm sure I get it wrong.
My question is mostly about the changing dynamics in cricket right now because as like from the last decade, since IPL is evolving and other leagues globally are evolving, so people are mainly choosing like a player is mainly based on the performance in IPL rather than the domestic tournaments. They're now taking a back seat because even though you perform so well in domestic cricket, they are not getting as much as importance as how they perform in the IPL. So, do you think tournaments like the Duleep Trophy or the Ranji Trophy they're losing their relevance like as the days go by? That's my
So let
question.
me let me just first ask you a question to your question, and then I'll give you my opinion. Do you have a player in mind that you felt got the advantage because of IPL and his domestic credentials were disregarded?
Abhimanyu Ishwaran is one such player I feel because he has been
Okay,
in the
very good.
test squad for a long time, but he has not yet made his debut. And Sai
Excellent. Okay,
Sudarshan was picked over him due to his IPL performance. So
very fair. Great. Okay, so let's talk about. So I'd like to sort of. I love talking selection because I think there's the one thing that's missing in the conversation around India's selection is balance. We tend to get so aggressive about selection, like selection in itself has become an event, and there is zero reflection on what your opinion was at the time of selection to the performance of the player and how you then respond to that. I remember the T20 World Cup squad was greeted with such aggressiveness and such animosity. Why are we going back to Rohit and Virat? Let's have a completely young team, and why are they four spinners? All of that. Uh, I think there are a few things that need to be stated here. One, this has now become the hardest team in the world to get into. It has been for a long time, but it's perhaps even more complex now. So there will be good players that will miss out. What you're looking for is a consistency in how the selection process is applied for almost every individual. Now, what is the selection process? And I think it's really important to hold selectors accountable because selectors have not been held accountable in the past. Our focus used to go mainly on coaches and captains, but selection was a much more influential position in Indian cricket than actually the head coach, right? The coach, by virtue of the personality of the coach, can become more influential. But selectors have always had a bigger role to play, but selectors have never had that sort of scrutiny until there's been a colossal screw up, for the lack of a better term. So when we saw Vijay Shankar play in the 2019 World Cup, that's a colossal screw up. There's no explaining that. And that is where a selector should be held accountable. There is also a correlation here because that time you were the most influential captain the team had in Virat Kohli, right? And there has to be a buy-in. I refuse to believe ever that MSK Prasad told Virat Kohli, I don't care what you think, I'm giving you Vijay Shankar at number three. So that doesn't work like that. I'm not giving you Ambati Raidu. So there has to be a checks and balances. Let me talk about the current selection committee because I have some decent insight. I mean, I think it's easy for people to connect the dots if you followed my career. That Ajit Agarkar was and remains a dear friend of mine. But I state that to make sure that I'm acknowledging any bias that might come through in my opinion. But I'm trying to watch this as objectively. Firstly, selection I think has to be about something that people who have a plan or a vision for Indian cricket see beyond what the world sees. Otherwise, all of us can be selectors, right? Uh, and at times, you have to leave room for the fact that there is something that the team is thinking that we may not know. This is supposed to be a dull answer in today's times because people want an opinion either way. Like they want someone's head on the block. At the time of the T20 World Cup, I think it was Rinku Singh How can you not take Rinku Singh? What has he done wrong? He couldn't make the team. Today it's Shreyas Iyer. Well, how can you not take Shreyas Iyer? What has he done wrong? These are you're looking at you have to look at every position in isolation, as well as what position a player is competing for. Who is he going out? I think Agarkar's response is a perfectly valid response. People didn't like it, but when someone asked him about Shreyas Iyer, he said, "Who's he going to replace?" Shreyas Iyer is a T20 number 3 or 4. Right now, T20 number 3 or 4 is Tilak Verma and Surya Kumar Yadav. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I've seen some tweets online where people say Surya Kumar Yadav is a rubbish player and Shreyas is a better player than him. I don't know what to say to that because I'm completely stunned. For me, Tilak and Surya don't go anywhere. They are the two most dynamic T20 players in the world, and I don't care what everyone else's opinion is. So I can see merit in it. Now let's talk Ishwaran. There are two things that I think selectors keep in mind. One is the sort of record of a player, right? The second is what I now start looking at it as the eye test. How does a player look? He's got the numbers. A lot of people have numbers. You can go through the eras of Indian cricket and talk about a number of people that top domestic cricket records and whatnot. Sarfaraz Khan comes to mind. Outstanding numbers, insane numbers. Karun Nair had insane numbers. But there was always a concern around Karun Nair with the eye test. He has a flaw in his game. He is a shaky starter. The moving ball could keep him vulnerable. Is he a number 3 or not? These are all valid questions that over a period of 5 tests in England, the 3 that Karun played, we saw why they were there. It was his opportunity to counter it, which is another side to it. Abhimanyu Ishwaran is an excellent domestic player. According to me, the real point that the selectors, I wouldn't say the selectors, because selectors pick the squad, the captain and the coach decides the 11. The captain and the coach had the opportunity to play him at Perth. That is where I think they missed out. Because Rohit Sharma was not there, Shubman Gill got injured. Then to play Devdutt Padikkal ahead of him, for me, was validating your point that suddenly Padikkal is playing a little more IPL and therefore he might be playing. I don't think it's as much about IPL. If it was about IPL, what you can play Abhishek Sharma also. No? He's such a good IPL player. Play him in Test cricket. You're looking at an eye test. Padikkal looks like the kind of player who's got the game. They claim that he was much more at ease in the warm up games in the Australia tour, so we played him in front. I think that's an inconsistency in application of selection. But you're always thinking this guy gives me a better chance to win the game than the other guy. Unfortunately, that window came without any doubt or shadow of the doubt for Ishwaran in Australia. Why Ishwaran didn't play in England is not a relevant point to me. How will he play? You have KL Rahul and Jaiswal. He's a top order opener, right? He's an opening batter. Uh, there's no room for him over there unless one of those two get injured. Sai Sudarshan, again, we come down to an eye test over here. A player who we feel has the goods, even though he may not have the record, as against a player who has the record, but we feel doesn't have the technique. From Ishwaran's point of view, it is bitterly harsh. And I still believe that every player has earned the right to prove people wrong. Sarfaraz Khan, Abhimanyu Ishwaran, chalo, I'll say, I don't think Sarfaraz has the technique to play in Australia or succeed. But he has earned the right to fail. Now you have to wait for a spot. That is the second part of the argument. That spot has to open up. So I would have happily accepted that Ishwaran gets the first test, and if he fails, then Sai Sudarshan comes in. But they decided to go with a combination of Sai Sudarshan and Karun Nair, and eventually you had to leave Sai Sudarshan out to keep Karun Nair in the team, which is also debatable. So no, there are so many nuances in this. What the Ishwaran example unfortunately tells us is, as a pure red ball domestic player, if he's going to be treated like this, the incentive to be a pure red ball domestic player is reduced. And that is something that the Indian selectors will have to keep in mind when they pick players in squads, but do not give them time in the middle. In Ishwaran's case, all the guy can do is keep smashing runs. And those runs have to be pivotal and they have to be well timed. He can have a damn good domestic season, but he's got to get those runs even in that one warm up game before the series. I know it sounds harsh, but this is the benchmark that you have to live up to if you want to get a team. Sometimes you have to do more than what is needed, and even perhaps a level more than that. That's how hard this team is. That's why I started by saying that this is a really hard team to get into. I don't think that there is a consistent theory that we will pick players on IPL performance alone, because otherwise then you'd have Shreyas Iyer also, no, in the test team and whatnot. You're also there are enough examples of players that get removed because they don't necessarily pass the eye test for red ball cricket. And it is a very hard thing in today's time to be a player that is successful in each format. So that is sort of my convoluted answer to whether the dynamics have changed. I think there's still a lot more sense in selection now than there was previously in squads, in the teams. That's an identity of a coach and a captain that I think are still figuring out their vision for Indian cricket. So we will see inconsistent selection for some time.
And since you brought up about the current affairs of Indian cricket, sir, how are you seeing Shubman Gill as an all-format captain? Because it's going on everywhere because he's been recalled to the T20 side and made
Yeah.
the vice captain of the Asia Cup squad. So he did a wonderful job in the India England series. He led a very new side and he did really good job. So your take on Shubman Gill? Do you see him as a all-time format, or do you think there will be a split captaincy in limited overs?
So he's already a three format batsman because his numbers, his record in ODI cricket is phenomenal. He There was one question mark on Gill overseas in tough conditions before this England series. He's passed that with flying colours. And now, as far as T20 cricket goes, I think this year's IPL told us a lot about the in sort of just the level of Gill's game. The challenge right now for Indian cricket is: do you want to push a young batter to have to adjust between formats, which is a really, really difficult thing? Maybe it will come easier to him than it did to some of his predecessors because that generation of batters, the Virat Kohlis and the Rohit Sharmas, grew up with a very different psychology of batting. Preserve your wicket, don't, stay out till the end. Whereas now you have a lot more players who play the T20 brand in the way it should be played, which is not necessarily care about your own wicket, etc. But yeah, you have to now suddenly look at Gill playing the Asia Cup, the final of which is on the 30th, I think, and then the second or 29th, and then the 2nd of October is the start of the West Indies Test. So, what is the vision for Shubman Gill? Can he actually continue to adjust from one format to the next? Only Gill will give us the answer. There is no downside to picking him, in my opinion, because you also want to find a balance to the kind of batting lineup you have. If you play Sharma and Samson and Tilak and Surya, there will come a day where you will be 30 for 3 in the power play, right? And India have had those days. And that 30 for 3 will not be in a bilateral like it was against England, it will be in a World Cup semi final, in a World Cup final. On those days, or maybe even in a chase, or on a day when when the pitch is not as easy or true, you want a batter who has flexibility and versatility. Gill cannot be an anchor who can anchor at 120, but he can certainly be a versatile enough batter who can go at 160, 180, when needed, and drop down and still sort of manage to play 140, 150 if he loses wickets. That is the kind of batter that I think India allow for Abhishek Sharma, Tilak, Surya, everybody else to continue playing the way they do. So Gill now has to live up to that expectation and reputation, because the minute he starts regressing into what we saw for KL Rahul at times or a Kohli at times, there's no room to hide anymore. So this is now the challenge for Gill, but I think he'll be fine because I saw him play that way at the start of the IPL, where he went ultra aggressive, and he then changed his game because of the structure of the Gujarat Titans side. So I don't have any problem in Gill being picked to play all the formats. But I think if Gill struggles as a batter is only something Gill will tell us in time, then he has to make a call on whether he wants to play all three formats or not, or if he sees one format affected because of the other, like we saw with the KL Rahul in the past. You know, how he adjusts from one format to the next is a challenge now that he has to answer upon. Personally, I wouldn't have obsessed over him in the T20I side right now. I think it would have been fine to have him in the Test and ODI side, and you had enough options in the T20 side. But like I said, I don't see any downside in him being in the team, and the selectors clearly have a vision for him that Surya Kumar Yadav, at some point, he's now approaching mid 30s. At some point, they have to have a succession plan in place, and they think Gill at least is in the best position to succeed. His form has to carry on for him to be the successor. Otherwise, he won't be.
Sir, this question is mostly like a personal point of view because as I've been seeing cricket for I think more than 10 years, I felt people like one player that comes to my mind when I say is being neglected right now is Rahane, because I feel Rahane is a really experienced player. At one point of time, he was the next captain because people after Virat Kohli, people thought it was Rahane who would take over the Test team, and suddenly out of the blue he has gone away. I think the last match I remember him playing was the WTC final where he hit a 49, and then he has gone from the team. Even though he has been consistently performing in the domestic tournaments and in the IPL also, he had quite a good season. I don't say a really great season, but quite a good season. But given his experience, don't you think he can have one more chance? Because Karun Nair himself is not performing that well, and he's a more experienced player. So, don't you think he can get a spot back into the test team, or the selectors have moved on?
Rahane averages 38. I'm just checking so I get the numbers right in 85 test matches. Yeah. I think Rahane averages 38.5 in 85 tests. 85 tests. 85 tests is a career, Maitra. It is twice the career that a lot of people have. 85 tests don't come as a lack of chances. And when you have a team that has to be transitioned, you don't do it at one shot. You do it in phases. So first, India decided to replace Rahane, then they decided to replace Pujara, or they went together. Then after that, you've seen Rohit and Kohli retire. So by then, somebody like Jaiswal has at least played 10 test matches. Somebody like Shubman Gill has played 15 test matches. Ajinkya Rahane batted at number 5. I think he was a great servant of test cricket. He did really well overseas. He had some high profile innings. He never had consistency. There was never a season of Ajinkya Rahane as a consistent test batter. And at number 5, once you have played 80 plus test matches, you need to command a place in the team. Then you can't go. I mean, otherwise the team looks forward. Those World Test Championships that you talk about, India recalled Rahane for an experienced player for a one-off WTC final. That 49 had to become 100 then. If a young player gives me 49, I'll say, chalo good, there are good signs here. If a guy who's played 80 test matches gives me 49, is that the best output I'm getting in this team? I mean, you've seen what the test team has just achieved in England. I don't think we missed any batter. We didn't miss Kohli and Rohit. So where's the question of missing Rahane? So I don't think Rahane has had an unfair deal at all. I think he had a terrific career. Uh, I don't think he was sort of ever going to be in an all-time great position, but he had a huge impact on Indian cricket, especially in some marquee series like the ones in Australia. He's a very sharp captain. I won't take that away from him. But he has to command his place as a batter, and he didn't. So I have no qualms at all with Ajinkya Rahane not playing in India's Test team.
Yes, sir. So my next question to you is: you were a law graduate before you come into this cricket presenting and everything. Uh, so I remember during this IPL, Lucknow Super Giants versus RCB when Rishabh Pant withdrew the appeal of that man carrying with Jitesh Sharma when I think Digvesha
Hmm.
did try, and it would have been not out even if Pant would have gone in with the review, and
Yeah, if you would have not
yeah.
withdrawn the appeal, yeah.
So and then there was so much confusion happening among the fans in social media, and ESPN Cricinfo came out with a video, and you explained it. And needless to say, I think you brought in your lawyer, uh, you know, s- lawyer sense, and I don't know what to call it,
Yeah.
but you were very convincing in the way you told. So I think I want to ask you about the new ICC playing conditions. Can you enlighten us on the boundary rules? Uh, and the
The
yeah
catch.
yeah the boundary rule, ICC new playing conditions 2025.
Are you talking about the catch? The boundary rule, you mean like the catch when the player is in the air beyond the boundary and beyond? Hey, okay. So, I mean, this is actually, I mean, if to connect it with the two, I've always had an affection for the laws of the game, and that had nothing to do with me pursuing law. I don't have any affection for laws of the land. It's not like I'm as obsessed with, legal statutes as I am with the laws of the game. But I was one of those kids in school and college when played cricket. I always volunteered to umpire because I felt like I knew the laws of the game. So maybe that is puts me in a club of people that I'm sure you can relate to, where you're like, oh no, 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 see the batter has moved, so that's why that's not a wide and all. I used to be one of those irritating kids who love to umpire. So anyway, because I maybe also because I was a better umpire than I was a player. So perhaps that's why. I can't hear you, Chiru.
Maitra is one such kid, is very strict umpire.
Yeah. So anyway, So to come back to it, yeah, like I really like getting into the intricacies of the laws of the game because I have a passion for that side of the game as well. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I try to stay as well read on it as possible, or at least I'll try and go back and read it and try and interpret it. Yeah, so I guess the new boundary, the clarification issued regarding the boundary catch rules, there was a very famous catch in the Big Bash a few years back. That video has gone viral uh, about when the player is taken the catch within the field of play. He's happened to toss it up in the air, but he's tossed it up beyond the boundary. He goes beyond the boundary himself, jumps in the air, and pushes the ball back into the field of play, right? And he's come back in and taken the catch, and it's been deemed out. So, as per the old laws, that was out. The one thing that the laws have clarified right now is, which is the sensible law, is that if you go beyond the field of play and if you have any contact with the ball, you need to then have be grounded within the boundary line if you are going to touch the ball again. So this aspect of away once you've gone beyond the boundary rope to then be able to to have a contact with the ball while your body is not in contact with the ground, that was the confusing aspect because it allowed for the kind of bizarre situation where a fielder might be well beyond the boundary, but as long as he's in the air when he's touching the ball, technically he's still within the field of play. So here the key aspect is the field of play. You are ensuring that the player is within the field of play, and then the contact with the ball and the hands can be legitimized. Whereas here, the player was completely out of the field of play, but he was just being interpreted as within the field of play because of a loophole of him being in the air, which doesn't actually make sense. So there are a lot of laws that are written in good spirit, but when you see the application, you realize, oh, this is not what we intended. So there's always the spirit of the law and the intention of the law. The intention of the law was not to legitimize those catches where the player is miles beyond the boundary and just happens to be in the air. So we don't want gimmicks. What we want is for the cricketing sort of merit to always remain intact. So that is what the laws try to protect. So in this case, it's quite straightforward. If I go beyond the boundary, then I can't just claim that I can touch the ball as long as I'm in the air. I need to reclaim my body within the field of play. I don't think I've simplified it, but that is just me running with it.
So, sir, cricket right now is mostly considered an Asia-centric game because most of the playing nations are based in Asia. But like for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, cricket is included, and there is a lot of outreach going on to promote cricket in the European countries in North America. So, do you think cricket will succeed in this way, like spreading to Europe and other countries, like how football has exploded? You know, over a century ago, football exploded. Do you think cricket is going down the same path? Do you see it happening?
No, no, cricket is not going down football's path because football is genuinely the game of the globe, and that's because football is a very easy game. Cricket is not an easy game. Cricket is cricket is an acquired taste, and it has been acquired by essentially us, along with the English, who, of course, it's a colonial hangover, right? But it's one of the hangovers we were happy to live with, and we've made it part of our own identity with great pride. Cricket's popularity will continue to increase amongst the Indian diaspora that settle all over the world. So the reason that the LA games will be successful or that cricket in the US will be successful is because of the growing Asian population in the United States or of Asian origin. That population will always have a desire for cricket, and maybe through that there'll be some sort of ripple effect of of America getting acquainted with cricket. Like when the Soccer World Cup, as they call it, or the FIFA World Cup went to the US in '94, soccer or football was not popular in the United States, but it was a hugely successful event. That is still easier because the game is easier to understand and fall in love with. I don't think cricket is as easy to fall in love with if you are a fan of other sport, right? Cricket is something you have to fall in love with. It's like a language. If you learn it at a young age, you'll speak it all your life. You try learning a new language at 28 or 30 or 32, you'll perhaps pick up a song or two, but you'll never be able to have fluency in it, or you'll never have the appetite to want to read more and watch more movies in that language and, you know, do all of those things. So cricket is too acquired a niche and intrinsic game. So I don't think it'll ever have the popularity football has, but I think it'll be hugely popular in the territories and in the sort of fan base that it continues to grow in. You know, there will be more and more Asians that will live in different parts of the world that may result in perhaps more competitive teams internationally. It may take time, but I don't think we need to be too obsessed with making cricket a 35 country game. What we should do is ensure it remains competitive with 10 countries or 14 countries. That's good enough. The problem cricket faces right now is even amongst those 10 countries, the real competitive cricket is only being seen by three or four. So that is the concern. It's largely a concern for the longer formats. The shorter format will always give you a story to love the underdog, like USA beating Pakistan in the last T20 World Cup, or Netherlands beating England in the T20 World Cup before, or things like that. So I think those stories will come through the shorter format, but it will never be football, and we have to be okay with that.
We have seen and followed ESPN Cricinfo for a long time now, and we have been you've become a synonymous for ESPN Cricinfo in the sense, though you've even although you're even doing broadcasts and presenting for JioStar and ICC events, we are
Hmm.
still seeing you as an ESPN Cricinfo guy. Okay, and you had done this popular series, the 25 questions with cricketers. So inspired from that segment, I would ask you 5 words, and for each word, one cricketer that comes to your mind.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, the first word, grit,
Cheteshwar Pujara,
flair.
Brian Lara.
This word is controversial, but controversy.
The word is controversy. Shakib Al Hassan,
Well, consistency,
Virat Kohli,
leadership.
MS Dhoni.
So I think this will be the last question. So if you were to pick out of the three formats, which format do you rate higher, and why?
Man, I think nothing will ever beat competitive Test cricket. Once Test cricket, it's like anything, right? It's once you invest your time for longer and your emotions for longer, then if you get returns and rewards, they feel so much more satisfying. So otherwise, the investment is minimal. If I see a non-competitive T20 game, even if it's boring, it's over in 3 hours. I didn't care much. If it's close, great. But I get so many close games that my recall value then drops. It's not as easy for me to remember a really close T20 game. But you remember almost every close test match. You remember by and large most close one day internationals, maybe not as much bilaterally, but certainly World Cup games you remember and recall when they were close because you've invested that kind of time. So, I mean, maybe there's a little bit of recency bias, but it's recency bias that, sorry, my dog also agrees with me. Sorry. Shh. Yeah. So, this Anderson Tendulkar trophy reinforced the love that you can have for competitive test cricket. It is like nothing else. So for me, competitive test cricket will always rank at the top. But I think the formats will survive because of the other two. It's not like one is threatened by the others. I loved this test series because I had had enough of 2 months of IPL. I love the IPL also. But now after the test series, I'm looking forward to some T20 cricket, the Asia Cup. Before you know it, there'll be an ODI World Cup coming up, and I'll be looking forward to that like we did before 2023. So I think the formats will dovetail well of each other.
And this will be my last question. This will be the last question of the podcast. So, sir, like I would like you to give some advice for few aspiring presenters. Like I will tell you my personal experience when there was a elocution competition in my 11th standard. I had prepared for it really well, and I had gone there to the podium, and then I saw my teacher making faces. I mean, he had a very strict expression on his face, and that's it. I was blank. I stopped the speech midway. I had come off, and there were claps, of course, encouraging claps, but it was done. And there are times even in the podcast when I would frame the question in my mind and it would be really clear in the mind, and sometimes it just goes blank, and there are sometimes I stammer, and so many things happen. You become conscious when the video is on, you become conscious when you're speaking. So if you could give a 2-minute quick advice for aspiring broadcasters.
Sure. So there are a couple of things I'll say. Firstly, this medium is such a heavily influential medium because you will hear something you like or see someone you like and try and be like that. We've all done it, right? We heard Harsha Bhogle growing up, or we heard Tony Gregg, or we heard Ian Chappell, or whoever it may be that you look up to. In today's times, you can hear Gaurav Kapoor or Jatin Sapru. These guys are terrific, and you want to try and sound like them. The challenge there is while you can take phrases, mannerisms that impress you, is still to find the balance in being authentic. Because if you try and be like Bogle or try and be like Jatin or try and be like Gaurav, you'll be a cheaper version of them. And that nobody will like. So take what you like about somebody and then inject it into your own body and see how it responds by being true to yourself. If your strength is a certain style, like to find and establish your own style takes time. But don't try and be anybody else. Be authentic. That's the first advice I'll give you. Second, there has never been greater opportunity and exposure than there is right now. The fact that the two of you started this podcast, you're already 3 years of experience on camera. That may not be experienced for 150 million people. It doesn't need to be. But you have worked with a setup. You've seen how you look. You will watch your podcast back. It's not stuff I got to do when I was growing up. We were still dialing in to competitions. I was too young when Jatin had his competition that he won. I was too young because I wasn't 18 years of age. Now Jatin will hate me for saying this, but I've told him this before that I didn't. We didn't have opportunity. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't have a camera. We didn't have this damn thing with a camera on it. Right? It's more like your college. You still don't, Chiru, but that's because of your college. Right? So this is exactly what you should keep doing. If you aspire to want to be in it, keep at it. Don't make it a hobby that is like it's like a guitar that you used to play as a kid, but then studies came up, so that guitar's lying in the corner gathering dust. Stay in touch with the game. Do your podcast regularly. Don't worry about how many people watch it or whatnot. You're doing it for you. You and me talking is giving me great satisfaction. It doesn't. I don't care how many people watch this. So with that attitude, if you keep sort of those things at its core, you'll only get better. Everybody gets better when they do the same thing over and over again. You will be better today than you were on your first podcast. And I think both of you can attest to that. Go watch yourselves in the first episode of Legends and Lads and the 97th episode, and you'll say, this was much better. This intro was much better. So, you keep sharpening your tools. So keep at it, be authentic, and remain patient. Perhaps the last thing is the most important thing. Remain patient. It's a tough industry, but there has never been more cricket happening than there is today. So you never know where the opportunities come from.
Well, this will bring you to the end of today's episode. Raunak sir, thanks for coming. It was a pleasure
Thank you
hosting
so
you.
much for having
And
me.
thank you,
My
Maitra.
pleasure. Thanks, Mitra. Thanks to you. All the best, guys.
Thank you.